You may have noticed that all participants were muted upon entry. Please keep yourself on mute throughout the call. We have received many important questions through registration, which we will be addressing. There will be also time tonight for participants to ask questions of our guests. Please use the chat box, which you can access from the bottom of your screen. For those of you who are new to Sharsheret, and as a reminder to others, Sharsheret has been providing telehealth support services to the breast and ovarian cancer communities for 20 years, because cancer is much more than simply a physical experience. In addition to our many formal programs to help women and their families navigate different aspects of the cancer experience, I want to remind you that our clinical social workers are available every weekday from 9 to 5 in each time zone for one-on-one support. They can answer questions, connect you to appropriate resources, allow you to vent on a difficult day, and so much more. As always, our support services are 100% confidential and 100% free. As we move into the webinar itself, I also want to remind you that Sharsheret is a national not-for-profit cancer support and education organization and does not provide any medical advice or perform any medical procedures. The information provided by Sharsheret is not a substitute for medical advice or treatment for specific medical treatments. You should not use this information to diagnose or treat a health problem. Always seek the advice of your physician or qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. And now, it is my honor and my pleasure to introduce Dr. Edith Eger. Dr. Eger is a world-renowned psychologist and lecturer. She is also a survivor of the Holocaust. A native of Hungary, she was just a teenager when she endured and witnessed unspeakable horrors, losing her parents at Auschwitz, dancing for Dr. Mengele in order to save her life, and surviving the death march in Austria. After the war, she moved to Czechoslovakia, where she met her husband. In 1949, she and her young family moved to the United States, arriving almost penniless and enduring so many challenges. In 1969, she received her degree in psychology from the University of Texas, El Paso, and she pursued her doctoral internship at the William Beaumont Army Medical Center at Fort Bliss in Texas. Dr. Eger has a clinical practice in La Jolla, California, and holds a faculty appointment at the University of California, San Diego. She specializes in working with people facing PTSD. She draws upon her experiences as a Holocaust survivor to help people heal, to face their limitations, discover their power of self-renewal, and achieve things they previously thought unattainable. In 2017, at the age of 90, Dr. Eger published her memoir, The Choice, an amazing, amazing book, which is The Choice, Embrace the Possible. This book has received 2 book awards, was a New York Times bestseller, and is internationally acclaimed. Her second book, The Gift, 12 Lessons to Save Your Life, was released in September of 2020. It is a how-to guide filled with incredible practical advice on healing and living your fullest life. I just finished rereading both these books and they are life-changing. Each time I read them, I am moved and awed and inspired. I know I will go back to them again and again. Dr. Eger, it is my absolute pleasure and my honor to be speaking with you, and I can't thank you enough for joining us. We've received a series of questions that I'm going to share with you. Some have been submitted by our staff and others by registrants for the webinar. I anticipate that as we speak, there will be additional questions that will come up in the chat, and we will try to get to as many as we can.
Good.
As I prepared for this webinar and I organized my questions, I kept thinking about a beautiful pearl that your assistant, Katie Anderson, shared with me several weeks ago. She said that when I interviewed Dr. Eger, Just give her a crumb and she will make a banquet. Dr. Edith, as I offer our questions and our crumbs, please know that we are all prepared to feast on the banquet that you will lay before us.
Thank you. Thank you. So very kind. And I couldn't be happier to know that being proud to be Jewish really means to me that our ancestors were slaves. They were also got out of slavery and ended up walking more than 40 years. I researched that and never gave up. So we carry that blood. I'm very proud to be a woman of strength. And that strength came from the darkest places, but I was able to look at the guards and reminding myself that they are the prisoners, not me, and to be able to go day by day, hour by hour, minute by minute, because I knew that my liberation will come. And thank God it did. It did on May 4th, 1945. You can check it out with the Red Cross. I did return to Auschwitz, and the work I do is about grieving, feeling, and healing. You cannot heal what you don't feel.
And I'm definitely going to ask you about that later. So that's one of the questions, and I love that saying. You know, I know you read your book. We heard I heard your voice constantly talking about how in life and in your experience, we're all too often thrust into what's unexpected. And there's just so much that we cannot control, whether it's the Holocaust, a cancer diagnosis, COVID-19, and your philosophy is choice. And I want to read from something in The Gift where you say that while suffering is inevitable, suffering is universal, but victimhood is inevitable. And oh my goodness, I apologize. I'm on the wrong page here. So you'll excuse me. I would like to actually start with your philosophy of choice. And you write that while suffering is inevitable and universal, we can always choose how we respond. And I seek to highlight and harness my patients' power to choose to affect positive change in their lives. What advice would you give to people trying to make positive change for themselves in difficult times and cope with all the things in this life that we cannot control?
I think what is advice. I think the worst wise is advice. I try to stay away from advice, and I don't ask how are you. I don't ask anything about how can I help you, because I'm not Humpty Dumpty and I don't put people together, but I do ask, how can I be useful to you? Because I'm doing it with you as you do, rather than for you or to you. So I think it's very, very important for us to look at our thinking, because if you change your thinking, you can totally change your life. So I would really think of telling everyone to really recognize that there is something between our brains, and we have 2 ears, so we would listen more, and 1 mouth, so we would talk less. I like questions and answer them sometimes, as Jewish people do. Answer a question with a question. How are you? Well, how do you think I am? And but I like the I like the idea of a dialogue, that I can be I and you can be you, but together we're going to be much stronger than you alone or me alone.
Yeah, very wise words. And as a parent, I'll keep that in mind particularly. I also, so many pearls of wisdom throughout your book. And I'm going back to my glasses and I'll get to the right page this time. But you talk a lot about victimhood and victimization. And I wanted to read from how you do mention that unfortunately, suffering is universal, but victimhood is optional. And you continue to say that many of us stay in a prison of victimhood because subconsciously it feels safer. We ask over and over, believing that if we could just figure out the reason, the pain would lessen. Why did I get cancer? Why did I lose my job? Why did my partner have an affair? We search for answers, for understanding, as if there's a logical reason to explain why things happen the way they did. But when we ask why, we're stuck searching for something or someone to blame, including ourselves. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between suffering and victimhood?
Sure. Suffering is a feeling, and I also like to differentiate between believing. People tell me I believe this and I believe that. I like to look for what kind of life you lead. I have faith. I have faith instead of beliefs that somehow, no matter what I do and what I say, hopefully is going to look at me by others, not ever being a victim. I was victimized. It's not who I am. It's not my identity. It's what was done to me.
That's right.
That's important to differentiate faith and beliefs. People say, I believe. Well, show me. Show me what time do you get up in the morning and how can you look at your perfectionism and find out that you're just human, you're going to make mistakes, and it's okay. It's okay to be average. It's okay to make a C or a B or even an F and a flunk. I think being human means that you give up perfectionism because perfectionism leads to procrastination.
Yes, and I think that's something that a lot of us struggle with. It's hard.
Yes, a lot of struggling when it goes about procrastination because then you go backwards. And why is a past-oriented world and a problem-oriented world? It's better to say what is going on rather than why me. Well, why not me? Why me? But why is the past-oriented world a problem-oriented world? I like the idea of instead of why me to say what now. So I can walk, I can now finish this year as well as I can and to light all the candles on Hanukkah.
Yeah.
And by the way, Rabbi Raskin came and he brought a bottle of wine and he opened the wine and started to dance.
No,
There is
no.
one thing I learned, never touch a rabbi, see? So we were dancing while I was there and he was over there, but I learned because one time I wanted to shake hands with the rabbi and he backed off. So from now on, I don't shake hands with rabbis, but I honor them very much, not to be smart, but to be wise.
Very nice. Yeah, thank you. And I think everything you said goes to, your whole philosophy about the choices we make, and we can make that decision to embrace and to live and to wake up in the morning and live a full day. So It's wonderful. I have a question from one of our clinicians, and they often hear from people who try to minimize and diminish what they're going through. And I think we all do that in life. But, people will say, who am I to complain when I compare myself to my friends, my neighbors, to what Dr. Eger, who survived the Holocaust, went through? And it could really, be so much worse. And throughout your book, you repeatedly say, well, there's no hierarchy of suffering. There's nothing that makes my pain worse or better than yours. There's no graph on which we can plot the relative importance of one sorrow versus another. What would you say to, our callers or people in general when they try to discount or minimize their pain?
Well, a woman came to me and told me I was unfortunately touched. But how can I tell you, Edith, because you were in Auschwitz? I looked at her and I said, I knew the enemy, you didn't. So, it's not comparing. It's not comparing. It's something that is unexpected, unanticipated. We are told one thing and we found another. That's what we are doing with COVID. We were not prepared for that. It was unexpected, unanticipated. We were told one thing and we found another. So don't minimize what is going on. See how you can allow, instead of going to your head and understanding. Men always go to the classroom to understand everything. We women go to the heart. And I want that feeling to be felt. So what comes out of your body doesn't make you ill. What stays in there does. And I never told anyone I was in Auschwitz close to 20 years because I wanted to be you. I wanted to be a Yankee Doodle Dandy. I wanted to speak English without an accent, and look where I got with the accent. I'm going to have a Hungarian accent, and I went to the Department of Languages and I was told by a brilliant man that go home, you're going to have a Hungarian accent and just live with that. I even went back to Auschwitz, and I think the work that you are doing is guiding people somehow welcome that feeling and go through the valley of the death, go through the pain rather than being stuck in it.
Yeah.
I call stuckness constipation. And when you're constipated, you concentrate on a movement. So I call it an arrow, that you have an arrow, you have a goal, and then you know what you're focusing on that can get you closer to your goal.
Yeah, thank you. You anticipated in so many of your statements, so many of my questions, but I'm going to pop them a little bit more because you talked about the importance of going through your pain and facing what burdens you. And I know in the book that you take issue with the conventional wisdom that says if something bothers you or causes you anxiety, just don't look at it, don't dwell on it, and don't go there. And you have amazing, beautiful aphorisms, that I've heard people call Edisms. And I just like to share a few. And I love them. I need to make a whole list. But one of them is the opposite of depression is expression.
Expression.
That's not what makes you sick. It's what stays in there. And Hungarian saying, don't inhale your anger to your chest.
Yes.
And then another one that honestly reminds me of something that my favorite yoga teacher used to say all the time when she was putting us in a position that pushed us to the edge. And she said, you've got to feel it to heal it. So that's right. I'd love if you could talk a little bit more about letting go of secrets and of facing our difficulties and the painful aspects of our life.
When you are angry, anger is not not a primary emotion. You either vent anger you suppress anger, it's better to dissolve anger, because underneath of anger are many other emotions that we cover with anger. We cover frustration, we cover anxiety. And there's no such thing as anxiety. We think anxiously. And that's what it's all about. It's very important how we get up in the morning and look in the mirror and say, I, I love me. Self-love is self-care. It's not narcissistic.
That's, yeah, and hard for people to remember that sometimes or make peace with that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Just make peace that you are human, that perfectionism is something that will hold you back, because there is no such thing as perfectionism. What it is, that you keep doing the same thing over and over again. And that's what Albert Einstein told us. That's
Right.
the definition
The
of
definition of insanity. That's right. That's right. So, you know, on a related note, you know, you also, and you mentioned this earlier again, that your book talks about the prison of trying to protect others from your feelings. And you were mentioning how, you know, you didn't want to tell your children about your experience, and that it's so tempting to show people, and we do this all the time, that we don't want to show them, we want to show people the version of themselves that they want to see. And you hid your past from your children. And I know that's an issue for many of our callers, because they don't want to burden their loved ones with, you know, all the pain they're going through and everything. So how can you, you know, maybe give some advice to our callers and our audience today about how to reframe their way of thinking about family members who are best trying to be supportive, and about sharing their story and what they're going through?
I think it's important, the relationship that you have with yourself, that you're not operating on an ego, because the ego is your false self. You see, I introduce myself, hopefully, as a person who lived life as well as I could, and I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. I just say that I have been suffering, and realizing that suffering made me stronger.
Yeah, that's the.
So what about sharing the pain with the family? I remember my late husband looked at my daughter when she was 16, and I bought her a beautiful orange silk dress.
Yes.
And my late husband said to my daughter, "Go have fun. When your mother was your age, she was in Auschwitz." I thought I'll kill him.
And a lot of Jewish guilt.
My husband, how dare you talk like that? My daughter didn't think of much at all. She loved her father. But I said, how can you talk like that? And I think it's okay to say whatever you're saying, and knowing that people are going to love you anyway. Love is, my definition of love is the ability to let go.
Yeah.
Let go. And one of the things I let go of, the need for someone else's approval. If I come to you and tell you, I really would like to get to know you, I hope you would like to get to know me too. And I really hope that you would accept me as your friend. And you tell me, I thank you, and yet I'm not interested. Okay, now look what happened. The best four-letter word in the English language starts with an R. Can you think of I'm going to make it easy. It's
Make it
risk.
easy. I'm not getting it.
I was reasoning, I was risking, and I didn't get what I wanted. But there is no such thing as rejection, because no one rejects me but me.
Right.
You can call me any name of the book, and I just say, thank you for your opinion, or a lot of thank yous. I say a lot of thank yous, but never deny someone else's truth.
Right.
So if you tell me that green crocodiles are on that wall, my answer is, oh, tell me about it.
Okay.
Or tell me more, because love is time, T-I-M-E, time. I think the work that you're doing is not a work, it's your calling.
Thank you. Thank you. And, and I think I remember you saying, which really resonated with me too, that, we don't experience rejection. What it is disappointment. And if you have a disappointment, you can move on from it, but it doesn't mean that you're rejected.
Exactly. Rejection, no one can reject me but me. And just not to take it personally. And people will tell you what they're going to tell you. I think it's very good to develop a dialogue. And Jewish people are very good with self-dialogue. I think we talk to ourselves quite
all
a bit.
the time.
All
Yes,
the time. All the time. And that is great.
It is.
Yeah.
So in addition to talking to ourselves, we keep getting all these wonderful questions that keep coming in through the chat. And a bunch of them are kind of similar, so I'll put a few together. And it's really about, we said that this is going to be a discussion about resilience. And we had a couple of people, one woman said, when I'm dealing with my health, how do I stay resilient? Or how do I cope when there's not a single part of life that is doable or workable on top of my cancer diagnosis? So when people are facing such times, where do they find their strength and the resilience? How do they do that?
Well, you think about your thinking, and you start with your head, and then kind of go down to your arms, and then you shake it out, shake it out, shake it out, and don't hold it inside. It's very important for you to listen to yourself and where is it coming from. And chances are you have some unfinished emotional business from your family of origin. It's not what is happening now, whatever is happening. It's just happening because you were triggered. That's a very good English word. You get triggered and you want to know, why am I thinking this? Well, you're getting triggered, and you better welcome it and pay attention to that and see that you may have some unfinished and emotional stuff from your family of origin. My mother told me, I'm glad you have brains because you have no looks. You know that? And I took that very seriously. I became very serious scholar. I read The Interpretation of Dreams by Freud. I had my own book club. And my boyfriend and I were Zionists. And we were going to Palestine to fight. We were really going to fight. We weren't going to go to make peace. I think we were very, very, very interested in going to fight for Palestine. And what happened, my boyfriend, I see him every day. I have it on my computer, and I look at him, and I realized that he was killed a day before liberation. And so I love to have a movie to honor him, the 16-year-old who
Yeah.
didn't make it here, and let people know that I do everything in my power to see to it that my parents didn't die in vain.
Amen. Yeah.
So that's why what comes out of your body doesn't make you ill. What stays in there does. So it's good to really talk and listen, but listening compassionately. Compassionate listeners is something that I practice, and I hope you are too. I'm sure you are.
I'm trying. And, you know, some people have asked the question about when you've gone through so much, like, how do you still have everything you experienced? How do you still have faith? And one woman wrote to us and she said, you know, I went through my cancer diagnosis and I came through the other side. And then she was diagnosed with ALS. And when all these things happen, how do you find faith? And how, you know, and how do you be okay with that?
I think faith is something that you never give up. I was told every day, the only way I will get out of here is as a corpse. I heard it every day. And I said to myself, when I get out of here, you know, my sister, when we were standing in our nakedness, she asked me a good Hungarian woman's question, how do I look? Now, I had a choice then, as you have a choice now, to concentrate on what she lost. That is, she was in her nakedness. And instead, I said, Magda, you have beautiful eyes. You know, and I didn't see it when you had your hair all over the place. I didn't lie. But again, we choose what we point out, that the victims will always find a victimizer. In fact, yesterday's victims can easily become today's victimizer, as you know, as you
Yes,
know.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
you are passionate, compassionate listeners, and I'm sure people are so, so happy when they see you, when they see your beautiful eyes smiling.
Oh, thank you.
When you enter the room, look at people's eyes that are smiling.
Yes.
This is your calling. This is Sharsheret.
Thank you. Bashert, thank you. And I think it was Bashert for me on a personal level for so many reasons to be doing this today, and really such an honor.
Thank you.
I'm going to go to some more of the questions. You know, one of the things that we do at Sharsheret is, and I'm sure you know the Hebrew word Sharsheret is chain or connection, and we connect people, a peer support. So if somebody's going through, you know, whatever stage they're going through, we connect them with a peer supporter who's, if they want, who's been through that. And some of our callers have asked, like, how do I know how much of my own story to disclose to them while I'm being their supporter? And I know, you know, as a therapist and as somebody who's had your own story, can you offer any type of guidance on how much, when they're supporting somebody, they should disclose and share?
I think it's important for you know what is beshed and what is not. And it's your gut. Your kishke is gonna tell you, go to your kishke and you're going to have the answer right there. Don't think too much. Sometimes we think too much, and we need to listen more as compassionately as we can. So I think you are brilliant listeners, I am sure. I am sure. You don't have to really teach it, just practice it. Children don't do what we say. children do what they see.
Yes. So go with our guts, really, and trust our instincts, right?
Yeah, right.
Let's see. A lot of these questions overlap, but, let me try to think of something. Many of our callers face difficult choices about treatment, about family planning, about disclosure. Do you have any advice on people should go about the process of making difficult decisions in their life?
I don't think you can think of marriage until you are financially and emotionally independent. I think it's important for you to become a good mommy to you, because you have a little girl inside you and that little girl is crying. I want to have a good mommy, okay? And make a list of pros and cons. It's hard work, especially, in your 20s. See where you are, that you are not going steady and getting into marriage proposals when you have to marry you. Marry the part in you that you can be a good mommy to, that you know what is good for you and what is not good for you. And that's why Jewish people survived, because we never give up, ever give up, no matter what you hear outside. They took my blood many, many times. And when I asked, why are you taking my blood? And he said, I take your blood to aid the German soldiers so we can win the war and take over the world. And I remember hearing especially America taking over. And I said to myself, you stupid idiot, you're going to take over America? I know better. So you see, you listen to what is said outside, but you don't fight with it. You don't waste any time with that.
Yeah.
So the question is not why me, the question is what now? That you do not ever allow anyone to murder your spirit. And that's what I bring you today. That spirit that I will never, ever give up as long as I live, that I do everything in my power to see that my parents didn't die in vain, and that will never, ever happen again.
Amen.
Unfortunately, on January 6th this year, someone wearing a shirt, 6 million was not enough. Unfortunately, history has a tendency to repeat itself. I'm going to hear everything and everyone, and I will speak up as well as I can to see to it that it will never happen again.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that. And thank you for inspiring all of us to stand strong and to be active and to believe in ourselves and to do what we feel is the right thing and what we need to do. Let's see, I'm just trying to,
you are chosen. You are chosen to do what was assigned to you.
Thank you. It's funny, as you were speaking and you were talking about loving yourself, I'm thinking about that and the contrast between the classic Yiddish mama who is like, takes everything on her plate. And I think you actually talked about it in your book. Don't take that. That's for me. You should take first. And I think it's hard as women and as Jewish women sometimes to take care of ourselves. And even, when people are sick, to take care of themselves because we're so used to being caretakers for everybody.
Yes, and we think we are selfish if we do that. But again, remember, if you don't love you, why should I?
Yeah. Okay, so somebody asked you, they said, my father was liberated from Dachau. After my breast cancer experience, I struggled to use the word survivor. What are your thoughts on, people who went through breast cancer, to use the word survivor or other terminology?
Yes, I think words are important, but it's not what you say, it's what you feel. I would go to my heart and I would go to the feeling, and the word is permission. You give yourself permission to
Yeah.
feel the feelings rather than talk about the feeling. It is important to recognize that what comes out of your body doesn't make you ill. What stays in there does. And that's why it took me a long, long time until I got a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Yeah.
So the choice is the female voice of Viktor Frankl.
Mhm.
Yes. And then we met here in San Diego, and I became really so blessed to be able to become a logotherapist, a diplomate in logotherapy, and that's what I am doing with people, to be able to hear their story. I have a story, but I'm not my story. So I think that's important.
Yeah.
That we all have a story. You have yours, I have mine, but we're not competing or dominating. We cooperate, hopefully. And that's why you are where you are. And you're not retiring ever. There is no such thing as retirement. No way I would ever retire. I'm better now than I was 50 years ago. See, because I lived life
That's
to the
right.
fullest. Hopefully.
No, you do.
Hopefully.
You're an inspiration to all of us. Unbelievable.
Yes, and came to America penniless, went to school, graduated with honors, but unfortunately I never showed up for my graduation because I thought that I don't deserve it. So be careful not to overdo anything. Today I would show up, I would scream it out, but at the time I had the survivor's guilt that didn't really allow me to get what I deserved and worked for so hard. So I think it's very good to be a good parent to ourselves.
Yes. Before you talked about that, that there's no such thing as an anxiety attack, that, we suffer from anxiety. But I think many people, on this call today, I'm sure at one point or another has had an anxiety attack. And I've had some questions that come in, and I'd love it even for myself, because we've had these. How do you handle what feels like overwhelming anxiety when something in your life is so out of control? Do you have any techniques or suggestions for people?
Get rid of the word handle. We are
Okay.
not handlers. No, we're not handlers. When you hear something that you just don't know where to put it, and you can just wonder about that. Where does it belong in you, whether it's empowering you or depleting you? Do you want to feel soft and warm or cold and stiff? See, it's very important to pay attention what you're paying attention to. Any behavior you pay attention to, you reinforce. See, you're going to tell me I'm never going to think about Hungarian chocolate cake. Guess what? You're going to think about it, because that's how our mind is working. Whatever you think about, you bring it on. And so it's very important to rehearse and even look in a mirror and say, okay, someone told me that I'm going through midlife crisis. There is no such thing as midlife crisis. There is a midlife transition. I can't have any children, but who wants some anyway by then? You know, I'm going through a midlife transition, and I'm going to maybe change my hair color. Maybe I want to lose a few pounds or something that I do every day that I have previously avoided. So that's why I say, don't call me a shrink, call me a stretch.
Yes.
You stretch your comfort zone, and then, you know, you become more cooperative too with others, and not to criticize anyone, because criticism will never really bring love. So fear and love does not coexist. It's good to sit down and write down all your fears, because you weren't born with them. And what you learn, you can unlearn. So every negative, you can write down 5 positive. So not yes, but yes, and. So give me the but, and I give you an and. Yes, and I grow every day. I grow every day, and I'm going to be a good role model to others, because, you know, children watch you. So hopefully that when you talk to children and that child is 10 years old, don't use words like cognitive dissonance, because they don't know that. And I think to meet people where they are, but treat them as if they were, but they are really able to and capable of becoming. That is an art, and I know you have that.
Yeah.
The person, not the way they are, but what they could be.
Yeah.
And even
We have to constantly remind ourselves of that, whether you're dealing with people who are older, people who are younger, right?
yes, and get rid of the chronological age.
That's right.
Please.
You are
Please.
so right. Yes. And
Yes.
you're right, you can keep growing. And maybe for some of us, we get to get a PhD at 60 and write a book at 90 and all
Exactly.
wonderful things.
Might as well, because I know that when I was 40, my supervisor told me to go get a PhD, and I said, it's impossible. By the time I get a doctorate, I'll be 50 or 60. And, you know, he said, you'll be 50 anyway.
Mhm.
See, that we cannot stop aging. It's what we do with it and how we can become wiser and older, that people come to us and listen to us, that black and white personality is too rigid, that you want to try something new, something that you previously avoided, and then you reward yourself.
Yeah.
And give yourself an Edgar.
That a girl. Yeah, love that. We can give ourselves kisses, right? And love
You
her.
got it. You got it. Yes,
So
be a good mommy to you.
good mommy, yes, very important. So I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. So I'm looking through the list and trying to see, some of them overlap. Some of them are not necessarily Sharsheret questions, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Let's see. What do your children do, and how do you separate what you went through? I'm sorry. Let me. How do we turn it around when we feel discouraged? I think you did talk about that a little bit. Maybe we'll around that.
I had 2 beautiful daughters, and then my son was born. And my son did not develop like my girls did. He didn't sit up, he didn't walk, he didn't talk. And in 1960, when he was 4 years old, I asked, where do I go for a second opinion? And they sent me to Johns Hopkins and a beautiful Dr. Clark took my son. A week later, he sat me down and he said, "Your son is not retarded. Your son is going to do everything everyone does. It's going to take him longer to get there." And I say, "Where do I go from here?" He says, "You go home." And that was El Paso, Texas. And every day, in every way, you practice something with him. And what happened is I asked him, "How much do I owe you?" He said, $10. So I went home. I dropped out of school. My son John graduated as a top 10 student from the University of Texas. That's what happens.
That's right.
That
And
you never say no for an answer. No.
no. And I remember you writing that he's also a disability rights advocate, which is amazing.
Yes. He just called me this morning and told me how much he loves me. I think it's important for you to love yourself. And I hope that you do that, because self-love is self-care. It's not narcissistic. So I hope you and your husband have a wonderful marriage, because that's the best thing you can do for your children. Have a happy marriage.
My husband is dancing in the background. He's on the other side and he heard you, so you made him very happy.
Beautiful.
I am going to.
Beautiful.
Thank you. You can come in and wave. I am going to ask you one last question before we wrap up, and which is, if you were going to tell us what is the secret to a life well lived, and I feel like you've given us so many wonderful pearls and idiisms, what is your secret to a life well lived?
Smile with your eyes.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you.
Shalom.
Shalom, shalom. Lehitraot. I want to thank you, Dr. Eger, so much for joining us today. You are a gift, and your words and your advice, they're so inspirational. If anybody would like to purchase Dr. Eger's books or follow her on social media or find links to her podcast, you can go to dreditheger.com. We're going to put a link to the website in the chat. And right now, also, we're going to put a link to a quick evaluation survey into the chat. Please check it out. Click on it now. You'll still be able to hear the last few announcements. Dr. Eger has generously volunteered to autograph one copy of the gift and one copy of the choice for the winner of our lottery for filling out the evaluation. So I would encourage you to do so. I also want to let you know about several very exciting webinars on a wide range of topics that we have planned for the next few weeks. On Thursday, December 9th, so this Thursday, at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Dr. Beth Riccanati, the author of Braided, A Journey of 1,000 Challahs, will demonstrate making challah dough and discuss the grounding and meditative nature of making challah. On Thursday, December 16th, at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, Dr. Batsheva Marcus will be joining Sharsheret for a frank conversation about sexuality and cancer, changes, challenges, and new approaches. And on Monday, December 20th, please join us for a discussion with Sharsheret's amazing genetic counselor, Peggy Cottrell, for Beyond BRCA or BRCA, What Results Mean for Me. In addition to BRCA 1 and 2, she will be discussing some other common findings on genetic testing and explaining what they mean for you, your family, and when you should consider an updated test. So please check our website regularly to see what topics are coming up. We will post a link in the chat box. You can also access recordings and transcripts of all of our past webinars by clicking the same link that is in our chat box now. Finally, and as always, Remember that Sharsheret is here for you and your loved ones. And so are Dr. Edie's books. We provide emotional support, we provide mental health counseling, and other programs designed to help navigate you through the cancer experience. All of our services are customized, confidential, and completely free. Contact information is being placed in the chat box now. Your health and your well-being are our priority, and please feel free to lean on us. Dr. Eger, thank you, and to all of you for joining us this evening, thank you. So one more reminder to please click on the link to the evaluation. Laila Tov, and have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you. You were a wonderful interviewer. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom.
Keep continuing.
Thank you for your book.
Love you. Thank
Bye,
you.
Edith. Bye, Edith.
Bye.
Love from New York.
I love you.
Thank you so much.
There'll never be
Thank
another you.
God bless you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for your book and your sharing.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Wonderful. Great program. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Nancy. It was great.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Have a good night.
Everyone be
Good night.
well.
Thank you. Thank